Good evening, everybody. Welcome back to a Fida's members talk. And I guess what's quite nice this evening is we're pushing into the digital space, a sort of new frontier of where fashion's heading. And we're lucky we've got here tonight Zoha Kahn, and she's a young, aspiring, creative who won one of our awards, and her work is sort of an in-between space of experimental narrative, with hidden stories within the backgrounds of her environments. So lots of fashion digital creatives tend to have just focus on maybe the garment or the fashion. But what's quite interesting about Zoha's work is it really has a whole realm of information surrounding the space as well. So she curates the space. And I think that was what really fascinated us about her work. So we're lucky to have her. We managed to get her late, but we got her, which was good due to technical things, which is the digital world. So which is quite nice. But what I'm going to do is pass over to Zoha, and she's going to introduce herself and her work and go through her portfolio. So over to you, Zoha. Thank you.
Thank you, Patrick. Thank you for the lovely introduction. So yeah, I am a digital fashion designer, and how I started was very, it wasn't something that I planned. It was very instant. I did fashion marketing and merchandising from a Pakistan Institute of Fashion and Design. And I was the Corona batch. I graduated in 2020, and my graduation was also delayed a bit. But when I was in my third year, I gained this fascination from fashion illustrations. I didn't know it was a thing back then. And once I dived into it, I really liked. I enjoyed doing it, but my drawing wasn't the best, and I don't think it still is. But I started with mixed medium actually. So if I could just share my screen and show you some of my work. Let me see if it's working. Okay. So this is the kind of work that I started with. It was mixed medium, and it was basically just Photoshop, just good Photoshop that you think that it is a picture, but it's really a lot of layers involved. So I moved on to then doing digital art. And that's basically when I realized that, okay, drawing might not be the best thing that I do, because when I was doing that, I also was hired as a digital fashion designer. And that was when I entered the corporate world, and I was simultaneously doing digital fashion and also doing digital art for illustrations. And that's when I realized that I'm really good at 3D design, and maybe I can merge the two fields together. So that's basically how I get my aesthetic. You could say that it is very much an editorial piece. It has a lot of story into it, a lot of thought process, research, and that's then how you get the design. So it was just when I was doing my job, it was very I did not know how to get into the 3D world, because I was never a gamer girl. It was very new to me. I didn't even struggle a lot. It was just natural to me for some reason. And I learned the softwares very quickly, and I really got the hang of it. And I just started diving into it deeper and deeper, while also continuing fashion illustrations in the digital medium. And while I was doing that, there was this big opportunity that Swatch was doing an open call. And I was really excited for it. And I did not make it on time. I started a week before the deadline, and I was like, but I really want to do this, because the topic was that you have to make something that represents your country. And I was like really excited about it. And then I used this is a cultural medium that is called truck art. So every truck artist designs their truck according to what their style is. For instance, I have the words that say fashion ki diwani, which means crazy about fashion. So stuff like that. that you would find on a truck, which could be my truck. So that's how I designed it. I have like monuments from my hometown and stuff like that. And 6 months passed, and I was like, maybe, it didn't work out. It's okay. I moved on. But then I hear back from them, and it turns out that I did win, and my work was displayed at Dubai Expo 2020 for a month. And this was like my first international win. And this was digital illustration. So it gave me a lot of courage. And then I was like, okay, I do want to make it a regular thing. And while doing that, the I was also designing the first digital collection. So in that collection, we were doing everything digitally for the first time, because in Pakistan you see a lot of physical fashion, but there's no one doing digital fashion. So we did that, and in that I did all the textiles, I did all the production and everything. And it was a very exciting time, because that is when I realized, okay, that I could do so much on my own. So maybe it's time to grow. So I grew out of the corporate world, and I started doing everything as a solo designer. So I started getting more into the softwares. I started learning more of the gaming softwares, not just Flow 3D, but Unreal Engine, Blender, and all of that. And it was very intimidating at first, but once you dive into it and you start learning, I feel like it's just so exciting that you just keep moving forward. So that's basically yeah. So it's the process that I make my art is that it is, if you see just the image, then it will look very minimalistic. It's like it's very basic, you could say. But when you hear the story behind it, it's very, very detailed. So I would say that my working style is very maximalist, but at the end of the day, the work that you see is very minimalistic. So for example, for this Versace piece, since this collection was this was the dress that Donatella wore, and it was all about the Versace girl. So I had this situation where she's maybe standing in like a store where there are all these mannequins with like drapery on them, but they're like silver. So your eye always moves towards the metallics, the silvers, the place where it's shining, but your eye goes to the Versace girl rather than the shine and the glimmer and everything. So she's the focus of the piece. So just like that, I just went forward. I then received a lot of appreciation from brands like Gucci, Private Policy, the Factory. So with all the work that I do, there's a lot of story attached, just like you said. For the Private Policy piece, this was the collection where the founders were trying to make a scene where this collection was inspired by Noah's Ark. So the concept for Noah's Ark in the collection was that everybody comes in pairs, and and it was also, and the scene for the fashion walk was a kind of a club scene. So what I did was that I made a couple. The couple was wearing like opposite pieces. These were not the couple pieces, but I just paired them both together just to show the diversity. And then if you look at the ground, they're like pattern pieces on the ground, which shows that everybody's cut from a different cloth. Everybody's different. And these people, they could be running away from the club, they could be running towards the club. So it's just that suspense in it. And then just the plants, they just add a lot of life into the artwork, I believe. So that's just something that I really do. I do try to put in natural elements into the digital artwork that I do, just to keep the human element and emotion attached to it. And then the Gucci piece is the last collection that Alessandro did. So just the signature pieces. And then if you see closely, there's like a road on the bottom of the artwork which leads towards just nothingness. It just vanishes. So it was you could say, I was just trying to convey that how Alessandro is right now, like the girls are standing on scales. So right now Alessandro is trying to balance out the I'm wrong. The team made this collection. This is after Sandro went out. So the team is trying to balance out a Tom Ford and a Sandro era. And in the road, you can see that where Sabato is going to lead the collection, the powerhouse Gucci. So right now it's very hazy, but they're still like, they're trying to balance each other out. So that was the piece for Gucci. And then for AZ Factory, that was just how the founder of the brand was always fascinated with drapery. There's a lot of drapery, feminism, and those fantasy elements attached to his work. So how Albert Elba's used all those the drapery. So I made a scene out of the drapery itself. So all the curtains, there's just like there's a repetitive scene with a lot of curtains involved, and the curtain has a scenery in it. So that's just to show florals, and then how the flowers come out of like a reflection, kind of a solid floor. So just to show some surrealism and some femininity and beauty in it. So after that, I also um was part of Digital Fashion Week. This was my first show with them. This was 2022 September. And it was really exciting because again, being recognized as a digital fashion designer was a big thing for me, because this was one of the first again. And yeah, it was really nice to connect with all fellow artists who were almost from the same field as I was, because this is a new field and not everybody over here. You'll find gamers, you'll find enthusiasts, you not necessarily people who graduated in fashion design. So it's kind of a very welcoming and energetic kind of an environment to be in. And then of course the Fida Awards, which are very special to me. So this artwork was made to symbolize how no matter how heartbroken you are, and your broken hearts could be lined up behind you and hit the ceiling, and still you'd give a chance to life in general, and to like the beauty in everyday life. So just to keep going on, and yeah, just femininity and courage. I think that's a recurrent theme that you'd find in my work. And then just diving into uh the the gaming software. So this was very, very new to me. This was I made the whole sets myself. This was for the fashion film that I did for Digital Fashion Week last year, and for September. And this was very special to me because in this I wanted to really show the Mughal heritage, and wanted to combine it with modernism. So basically the theme of the film was identity crisis faced by South Asian immigrants, or like any immigrant in general. How you immigrated to a country, but you don't look a specific way, or you don't talk a specific way, so you don't feel like you belong. So this is based on that. If I could just share the video also. I don't know if you could hear the music, but could you hear the music?
It was cutting in and cutting out, but we saw the video.
Okay, okay. This was while making these fashion films, I did realize that I really did like making beats also because I do make the beats for all the films myself. And so basically the film showed the journey of the South Asian girl who's like stuck in her identity crisis. She doesn't know what to do, and she's in a dark place. And then we see her through her garments, we see her shift to a very to a Mughal princess kind of a theme where she's like owning herself and being herself. And we also see the garment repeat itself. In the first edit, we see how there's a shadow behind that girl, and then in the end, we see that again. So it could be an ancestor guiding her who's been through the same situation, or it could be her own self, her future self, guiding her to where she is. Because the concept is that you cannot get help if you don't ask for it. So you have to ask for help. You have to seek who you are in order to find who you are. So that was the core of the film, and it was really I was really happy to see that it was also nominated for Best Fashion Film at Fashion Film Festival Milano. So it's a film very dear to me. And then I after that I also did collaborate with DJ Ape, and that was for his first European concert in your first European concert, and it was really amazing to have my visuals in the background while he was doing his concert. So this is the video that played. I tried to integrate AI into it. I'm not the best AI artist, but I did give it a shot. So I'd love to hear your feedback, Patrick, on this.
Good.
Yeah, that was the visual for DJ Ape.
Good. And there's two thoughts that kind of come to mind. If you think about Jamie Hewlett and the Gorillas, do you know the Gorillas, the band? So
Uh-huh.
I think how he's taken something quite 2D into a very 3D space. I'm thinking of the Gorillas and how you could make your work feel more animation based. So at the moment, it's still quite early days, and it's almost just lots of panning and moving around. I really want to
Mm.
see them characters start to animate. And I saw recently, well, there's two, but one that's just come out. An artist called Ryan Gander has just built an AI gorilla, and the gorilla is kind of a representation of humans, but you've got this sort of sitting gorilla snarfing and sitting around and making noises and will react to the audience. And I think what I'd love to see is, at the moment, you've got these sort of what I would call like MTV looking animations, where what would they look like if they went to hyperrealism, like super detailed, with lots of uh, grittier details. So I'd like to see that Babe Ape stuff, because I've seen lots of that when it came through the NFTs and stuff like that, how it moves on to something that's more hyper realistic, that it actually becomes almost like film, like cinematic like. And that's, I think that's the area I'd like to see you take your work, to make it more cinematic. I think in the film that you showed before, the one in Milan, I felt that
Mm,
that was more cinematic and had much more of an understanding of space. But the other
mm.
one, it depends on the role. If the film's like a backdrop or something that's
Yeah,
being played on a live screen, it can be a lot less detailed, much more gritty, um, and more stripped back, because you've got the people playing music or speaking, whatever they're doing, in front of the actual animation happening around. So it doesn't matter if it's not so great. But if you're watching a film like your other piece, which I
yeah,
think was much more finished and more refined, and the lighting was better, more thought about, and it felt more atmospheric. We lost a bit of the atmosphere on the second piece, but the second piece is played on a screen, so it has a different role. I think that's what I was talking to you about earlier when I was talking about the artificial Rome work. They've
mm,
built a space and it's very atmospheric. I think lots of people are forgetting about atmosphere, and that's part of it, immersing people into the digital space, that it feels like you're there, like as if I'm in a Spielberg film. When you watch a Spielberg film, you feel like you're immersed in the environment through lighting, through little sounds, where the camera's being held. All of these are quite important situations within the work. But I know you moving from this 2D space to 3D space, and where you're growing to is great. And I know, as we spoke earlier, that digital fashion is a playground at the moment, and I think it's open to anyone doing works like yourself. And I feel that you're doing a really good job, and I really like to see the sort of work that you're putting out there, and every time something new's happening, which is nice to see. And you're being quite inventive, and I think for what we're trying to achieve with Fida, it isn't just about analog and hand drawn. It will be almost this Paco Rabanne, Pierre Cardin, space age, new technology. We're not going to shy away from that. So, in essence of what we do, we're embracing all the different elements. Some looking more handcrafted, and then some more super digital, super high tech, super playful. And I feel that with what you're doing is great. And I think I want to see more people like you. I want to see FIDA have a bigger community of Zoas. And I speak to a few, and it's still hard to get them to come through the door and get to be part of the space, but it will happen. And
mm,
I'm interested to see the crossovers of how we can mix between both a more handmade space with what you're doing. I've got ideas for maybe a virtual museum, because it's
mm,
accessible. It gives people from opportunities the chance to see exhibitions, as you see we do online virtual exhibitions, and I want to push them further. Collaborating with people like you who can build virtual environments, and enable people to see work that they probably couldn't see if they aren't UK based. So we're a global platform. I'm speaking to you, and you're not in the UK. So the role of FIDA is to be this sort of very inclusive, diverse space that really celebrates every country, celebrates everybody, and sees what people are doing globally, the global, this global space. And I think it's great to see people, like yourself, young people, really being disruptive. I think that's the nice thing about it. And then and doing good projects. You're doing great stuff. Look what you're doing. Look what you're achieving. And I don't know how many more people in your class, in your cohort, are doing what you're doing. Is there many following your pathway?
I'm trying to inspire more people to do it, but let's see how many are going to follow up. But I do agree with you when you say that digital illustrators should move forward to, digital softwares and more into digital designing, because that is the next thing. And maybe, the hand-drawn stuff will always have its value, but it's always exciting to see something digital attached to it. Maybe the handmade piece could have an AR filter that you could, use. So that would be very interesting, having something that has so much hours and hard work attached to it, and then you could frame it, and then after you sell it, you could also have an AR filter, and then maybe that AR filter could change daily. Daily, you'd pick up your phone and see, okay, what am I going to see today? And it could be a new visual. It could be a new visual by day and night. So there's so many possibilities to even like connecting, staying digital, staying like an artist that is, doing stuff with pen paper, and still attaching digital to it.
Yeah, I agree. And I think it's just like people using Procreate. It's just another tool. So you've got the analog, handcrafted, and then most people now, any designer I speak to, they're all using an iPad. So
Yeah.
anyone who's illustrating or designing, they're all turning to the iPad because it's quicker, it's faster, it's more industrious. And then the next step is towards your space, where you've got these sort of technical wizards, as I'd call them, who are using Blender, who are using Clo 3D, who are using Gravity Sketch, VR, AR. They're going to be a whole new collective of people. And I think that place is an interesting space. And the AI part of it as well, which you were talking about as well, I think is at the moment within your community and the community I see is becoming a little bit homogenized because it's starting to look a little bit similar and not so unique, and it has a look to it. But I've seen some amazing work. If you feed photographs to AI and then you use AI to add something to it, you're going to get something unique. So if you refeed it with your own food, I think that's where AI can really bring it to a new level and be really creative. And I think that's the sort of space that we're heading to with the use of AI. I think AI is just an enhancer, rather than it being the actual do it all. You just send it some words and it creates everything. It's only riffing off content that it already can find. But if it's your content that it's working off, I feel that that's the space where AI really can be celebrated because it's been fed original to then build onto something new, unique again. And you're using that sort of AI creative space to render out the work in new ways. And I feel, it's almost like making a piece of art, screen printing it, and not sure what's going to happen, or putting a piece of clay into a kiln and what colors are going to come out. It's the same process. It's going through a mechanical process. So AI, I think, is a place that I'd really like to. I'm looking forward to AI. I know a lot of people aren't, but I think AI's role in replacing a lot of work is reality, and I think people are going to have to face that. And it's just people like you who are seeing the possibilities of AI. I remember GitHub when everyone was using GitHub and feeding it information. So it's no different, it's been around, and I think people will enjoy it and celebrate it. But yeah, so I think it's great to see your work, and I'm excited to see your progress, the journey next. And how are you doing stuff with rather than design, pushing more 3D forms into 2D forms like prints. Yeah, I'd love to see your work then being brought back out into something 2D, like silk scarves, embroidered clothes with your 3D print or 3D design being embroidered. That's where I'd like to see your work go next. Like it kind of goes in circles, so that it has this sort of circular design system. And I think that's where your work can really start to be shining and celebrated. You know, I can imagine Versace, how you could redesign their logo in something quite 3D, be really playful, and then it comes out to this beautiful print, beautiful shirt. Think of digital baroque. You could imagine that sort of that they're the spaces where we could see brands like that using it, and you know, like you were saying, AR filters, all these sorts of clothes that when you hold your phone up and you look at your shirt's like a green screen for the actual digital animation that's going to happen on your garment, which you can play. So I think all of them things is to come, which I think
Yeah.
is going to be fascinating. You know this anyway, so I'm only feeding everybody, feeding all the people that are not so much in the digital space. But yeah, and I've been following it for about I'd say about 10 years. I've been working in VR and stuff like that. So I'm just a little, probably a bit in front of you, but seeing what's been being played with, and it's nice to see what you're doing. So it's good, and I'm looking forward to seeing what you're doing. And I know you're doing your own fashion collections as well, if I'm correct.
Yes, I just started my brand. It's called Cult Alara. What we do is we make digital clothing accessories. So clothing accessories is something that nobody really focuses on, even in the physical world. So what we want to do is we don't want you to change your identity. We don't want you to go on an overhaul and completely change your look, your wardrobe. We want you to stay as you are, and then we want you to elevate your persona through our collections, through our clothing accessories, which are headgears, eyewear, cuffs, collars, stuff like that. So right now we focus on metallics, and everything is made out of metal, silver, gold, bronze, and like there's a collection of 7 that we have out right now. You can get it on Dress X, and there's one item that you could get on Spin Fashion. So it's a very interesting, it's interesting to see how fast everything is moving. Like you mentioned AI, and I'd say AI is more of a collaborator. And it is something that you also need to learn to use properly, because a lot of people, they think they're going to type out words and then magic is going to happen. It's not going to happen. You have to type the correct keywords. So also inserting in your own art is like the best practice you could do, because that creates the true uniqueness, and you're like making the AI learn your language. So once they know what your style is, they're just going to keep pushing your style forward. So it's not something generic that everybody is doing. So with Cultulara, basically, we want people to have items that are like they're digital heirlooms. So you pass them on to generations. So that's something that we want. We want people to invest in it. We don't see it as we see it as a collectible more than just a fashion item that you get. So we want to, with in the future, we do want to go digital also, because I would really love to see people wearing these gold and silver accessories and just see them in it. But also it's just very, very fascinating how in the real world, if you have to make something out of real gold or silver, it would be so expensive and it'd be so hard to do it. But then when it comes to digital, you can do it, and then you can have a collector base of your items. Once you build the collector base, you can then go digital, and then you could do 3D printing to something that looks like gold. So there's so much that you could do now, which you couldn't do before. So maybe we'll see more brands doing this now. But 3D printing is also something that really excites me. I do want to get into that also.
Yeah, good. And I guess that we'll watch what you're doing, see where it's going, and it's exciting to see what's happening in that digital space. And I know a lot of people. I guess the nice thing is it's still quite hard to do, like to get into Blender, to get into cloth design, cloth animation, cloth simulation. is still a big task going forwards. And with brands like DressX, how did
Hmm.
you how did you build that collaboration?
It's basically I'm the designer on contract basis. So we have a 3-year contract as a brand. So I just pitched them my idea since we were launching Digital Fashion Week in London, Paris, and New York. So I pitched them my idea. I told them my story. I told them Kaltalara's story, and they really liked it. And that's how it happened. So yeah, I'm a firm believer that you should connect to people. You should send in like cold emails. Just connect to people. You never know
Yeah,
what
good,
where it'll lead. So just keep
good.
messaging.
That's what I like to hear. That's what I like to hear. I think some people don't believe that they should get out there and just ask and try. And
Mm,
like you, that's I was hoping you were going to say that. So it's nice to hear that you're just going for it and emailing people and seeing what happens. And they can only say no, and you try someone else. So it's great to hear, Zara. So well done, and at least we got there in the end. And it's great to see the work, and it's lovely to see where you're heading now. And I'm looking forward to seeing where you're going next. So well done, and
thank
good.
you,
And
Patrick.
have a good evening. I don't know what time it is where you are. Is it very late?
It's about to be midnight now.
Ah, okay. So we're not too bad. Good. Okay. All right. So you can go to bed and have a good sleep. But thank you, Zoa, and I'll speak to you soon.
Thank you, Patrick. So nice
Good.
talking to you.
Same to you. Bye bye.
Bye bye.